The storm had just started when the old black sedan rolled up to the iron gates of the sprawling wilderness state. Few people in the world knew that the man behind the wheel, dressed in a faded blue uniform, cap pulled low, face streaked with dust, was actually Nicholas Wilderton, one of the wealthiest and most influential men in the country. But today, he wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't a boardroom giant. He wasn't the ruthless negotiator known to make empires tremble. Today, he was a gateman. He stepped out of the sedan slowly, leaning onto the wooden cane he didn't actually need. His movements were stiff, his breath loud and shaky, exactly the way he wanted to be seen. A frail old worker, a nobody, just another servant in the estate his family owned for generations. As thunder rumbled, Nicholas stared at the mansion windows glowing faintly in the distance. Tonight, he would find the truth. Tonight, he would discover who his wife truly was when she believed no one of power was watching. Everything had changed ever since he fell sick 2 months earlier. At least, that's what the world believed. He had stepped away from public life, claiming exhaustion and age. His board members panicked. The media speculated, and his wife, Helena, her behavior shifted in a way he could no longer ignore. She became colder, distant, always on her phone, always meeting with unknown people, always returning home late with excuses as thin as paper. And then there were the missing funds, small transactions at first, then bolder, riskier ones. Money disappearing from their joint accounts, assets moved behind his back. Every instinct in Nicholas told him something wasn't right, but he didn't want theories. He wanted truth. That's when he decided to do what no billionaire would ever admit to doing, disguise himself as a new gateman for his own house. Only 2 people knew, his son Adrian and his most trusted security head. Everyone else, including Helena, believed the new hire was just a desperate old man seeking work. Nicholas tightened his cap as he heard a second car approaching. Bright headlights cut through the rain. A sleek, unfamiliar silver luxury car glided toward the gate. The driver's door opened with a soft hiss, and Helena stepped out into the storm beneath a black umbrella. Her heels clicked sharply against the pavement. Nicholas felt something heavy sink inside him. His wife had always been glamorous, but tonight she looked different, confident in a cold way, calculated. Even the way she stood had changed. No softness, no warmth. "Open the gate!" she snapped without even glancing at him. Nicholas bowed his head, masking his face in the rain. "Yes, ma'am." But Helena suddenly paused. Her eyes narrowed at him. "You're the new gatekeeper, right? What's your name again?" "Daniel, ma'am." He had practiced it so many times. She looked him over, scrutinizing the old uniform, the shaking hands he pretended to have. "You look slow. I don't like slow workers." Nicholas felt his chest tighten. She had never spoken to their staff like this before, at least not when he was watching. "My apologies, ma'am," he whispered. "Just do your job," she muttered, getting back into her car. The gates opened. She drove in without another word. Nicholas watched her disappear into the mansion, the silhouette of her umbrella fading behind her. His hands gripped the cane harder. Something was deeply wrong. He walked into the small gatehouse where the security monitors flickered. He wiped the rain from his face and stared at the screens. And there, a feed from inside the mansion. Helena wasn't going to her room. She was heading to the forbidden wing of the estate, the one only Nicholas used, the office that held all his confidential files, safes, and private documents. Nicholas leaned forward as Helena pulled out a key card, a stolen one. The door clicked open. She entered, and she wasn't alone. A tall, sharply dressed man stepped into view behind her. Helena locked the door. Nicholas froze as he recognized a man. It was Marcus Hale, Nicholas's former business partner, a man he had cut ties with years ago after discovering Marcus had been involved in corporate fraud. Marcus should have been in prison. Instead, he was standing inside Nicholas's private office with Nicholas's wife. Nicholas felt the ground shift beneath him. Helena placed her hand on Marcus's chest. Speaking in a low voice the camera barely picked up. "No one suspects anything," she whispered. "Not even that old fool they hired at the gate." Nicholas's breath stopped. Marcus smirked. "Good. Once we get access to his main accounts, We can transfer everything. After that, the old man is as good as gone. Helena's voice dropped even lower. And his son won't be a problem either. Nicholas's entire world cracked open, silence roaring in his ears. His wife, his partner, betrayal in its purest form. He straightened slowly, the cane no longer shaking. For the first time in his life, Nicholas Wilden felt what true danger really was. Not from the outside world, but from the people he had trusted most. He turned off the monitor. The storm raged outside. Inside, Nicholas wiped the rain and anger from his face and whispered to himself, "It's time they learn who the real fool is." He opened the gatehouse drawer and pulled out a small device, one he swore he'd never use again, a voice changer. He switched it on just as he heard footsteps approaching. Someone was coming toward the gatehouse. Someone who did not expect the gateman to still be awake. Nicholas slid the voice changer into his pocket just as the footsteps drew closer, slow, confident, unhurried, a rhythm belonging to someone who believed they owned the night. Nicholas moved away from the monitors and settled onto the small metal chair, hunching his back, letting his shoulders droop until he looked like nothing more than a tired old man fighting sleep. The doorknob twisted. The gatehouse door opened without a knock. Adrian stepped in. Nicholas exhaled silently in relief, though his son's expression stole any comfort that might have brought. Adrian's face was pale, eyes sharp, jaw tight, a mirror of the tension Nicholas felt storming through his own veins. "You saw it," Adrian whispered, closing the door behind him. Nicholas didn't bother pretending. Every second, Adrian ran a hand through his rain-drenched hair. "Dad, this is worse than we thought. I checked the financial logs again. They've already created shell accounts. Offshore, if they gain access to your main vault." "They won't," Nicholas said, voice steady even though his insides twisted. "Not while I'm alive." Adrian hesitated before stepping closer. "You're going to confront them, aren't you?" "Not yet." Nicholas pulled off his cap and wiped his brow. "They're careful, Adrian. They've been planning this for months. If we confront them now, they'll disappear before we can prove anything." Adrian sat on the edge of the desk, anxiety rolling off him. "I still don't understand one thing. Why would Helena help Marcus? She has everything. Luxury, power, status. Why throw that away?" Nicholas stared at the glowing monitors. Helena's face froze in mid-laugh in one of the security frames. That laugh was not for him. Not anymore. He wasn't sure it ever had been. "It's always the same reasons," he murmured. "Greed, pride, the illusion of freedom. Some people would burn the world just to watch how bright it glows." Adrian swallowed hard. "What do we do now?" Nicholas locked eyes with his son. "We let them think the fire hasn't started yet." Before Adrian could answer, a soft chime came from the monitor. Movement detected in the east corridor. Helena and Marcus were leaving the private wing, Helena adjusting her dress and smoothing her hair as if nothing had happened. Marcus walked with the smug confidence of a man who believed he had already won. Nicholas felt a cold, sharp determination settle deep inside him. "They're coming downstairs," Adrian said, maybe toward the gate. Nicholas straightened his cap again. "Then I'll be here." The harmless old gateman. He reached for the voice changer and set it to its lowest pitch, turning his tone into a gravelly whisper. He couldn't risk Marcus recognizing him. Not yet. Adrian's hand hovered near the door. "Be careful." Nicholas gave a faint smile. "Son, careful men don't survive betrayals like these. Smart men do." Adrian slipped out the back door and vanished into the darkness just as Helena and Marcus appeared on the main path, walking together, heads bent in conspiratorial conversation. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the pale moonlight made their silhouettes even sharper, more sinister. They approached the gatehouse with unhurried ease. Marcus stopped first, glancing around with a predator's curiosity. "Is this where the new gateman works?" Marcus asked Helena, loud enough for Nicholas to hear. Helena rolled her eyes. "Yes, supposedly." Marcus smirked. "Let's see how useful he is." Nicholas braced himself as they stepped inside, but he kept his posture limp, shoulders curved, gaze low. Just an old man. Just another invisible part of the estate machinery. Helena stood near the doorway with her arms crossed, her tone dripping with impatience. You, Daniel, we're expecting an important visitor tomorrow. Someone who needs to enter through the east gate discreetly. You will keep your mouth shut about it. Understood? Nicholas nodded slowly. Why, yes, ma'am. Marcus studied him with narrowed eyes. Nicholas kept his face angled toward the floor, letting the cap shadow most of his features. The voice changer made even a simple breath sound older, weaker. This one looks half dead, Marcus muttered. Are you sure he won't be a problem? He won't, Helena said firmly. People like him never are. Nicholas felt a faint sting at those words. Not because they insulted him, but because they revealed what Helena thought of the people who had served this family for decades. The kindness she had shown for years. Now he wondered if it had ever been real. Marcus stepped closer. Nicholas had smelled the man's cologne. Sharp, expensive, arrogant. What's wrong with your hands? Marcus asked. Nicholas let them tremble slightly. Old bone, sir. Marcus leaned in, trying to study his face. Nicholas turned his head away, wiping non-existent sweat with a sleeve. The rain had fogged the windows slightly, dimming the light enough to conceal his features. Marcus grunted. He's harmless. Probably won't last a year. Helena didn't even pretend to disagree. Just follow orders, she said sharply, then added under her breath. Unlike my husband. Nicholas clenched his jaw, but kept his expression neutral. Marcus chuckled, pleased by the bitterness in her voice. They turned to leave, but just before stepping out, Marcus paused again. He turned back, slowly, deliberately. What did you say your name was? He asked. Nicholas repeated, Daniel, sir. Marcus stared at him long enough to test his nerves, but not long enough to expose him. Finally, he nodded and walked out into the drizzle, Helena following after giving Nicholas one final cold look. As soon as they were gone, Nicholas shut the gatehouse door, locked it, and sagged against the wall. His heart hammered in his chest. Not from fear, but from fury held under tight restraint. He moved back to the monitors, watching Helena and Marcus walk toward the guest house at the far end of the property. Not her bedroom. Not their home. She wasn't even pretending anymore. Nicholas lowered himself into the chair and whispered to the empty room. If it's war they want. He didn't finish the sentence, because another alert flashed on the screen. Movement detected in the underground garage. But they weren't anywhere near it. Nicholas leaned closer. A second figure was moving silently between the cars. Hooded, careful, determined. Someone else was in on this. Someone he had not anticipated. And that meant the betrayal ran deeper than he imagined. Nicholas reached for the earpiece linked to Adrian's private channel. Son, he whispered, there's someone else on this state. He didn't get a response. Only static. Then a faint crackle, a sharp breath, and Adrian's strained whisper. Dad, they got to me first. Nicholas froze, the voice in his earpiece cutting through him like a blade. Adrian's breathing was uneven, strained, barely controlled. The sound of something metallic scraping echoed through the channel, followed by a stifled grunt. Adrian tried not to cry out. Adrian, Nicholas whispered, muscles tightening. Where are you? Talk to me. Static, then a muffled thud, then nothing. Nicholas's blood ran cold. The room around him blurred until only one thing remained sharp, the realization that this betrayal wasn't just about money. They were targeting his son, his legacy, his blood. He grabbed a small drawer under the desk and pressed a hidden latch. A panel slid open, revealing a compact emergency kit. Something he had put in every corner of the estate years ago, back when threats came from outside enemies, not from his own home. Inside was a burner phone, a handheld security override device, and a tranquilizer gun disguised as a pen. He pocketed all three. The monitors showed Helena and Marcus entering the guest house. Lights flicked on inside, their shadows moving behind the curtains. Nicholas ignored them. His attention was on the underground garage feed, where the hooded figure was dragging something or someone behind one of the black SUVs. Nicholas's hands curled into fists. Adrian. He pushed open the gatehouse door and stepped into the fading rain. He no longer hunched. He no longer shuffled like a sick old man. He walked with the controlled power of a man who had built empires with his bare hands. He didn't run. Running could be heard. He moved like a shadow, staying between hedges, behind stone pillars, slipping across the estate as though he had lived a double life preparing for this exact moment. The garage was dark except for the emergency lights glowing faint amber. Through the glass wall, Nicholas could see movement. 3 figures now. Adrian on his knees, wrists tied behind his back. Behind him stood the hooded person, tall, athletic, face hidden. And next to them, Nicholas's heart stopped for half a second, was Marcus's personal bodyguard, a man he once fired for corruption. 3 enemies, 1 son. Nicholas slipped through the side entrance, careful not to draw attention. His voice changer was still active, distorting his breathing into gravelly tone of Daniel. That might give him a small advantage. Seconds confusion, but he needed much more than seconds. He crept behind a pillar as the hooded figure lifted Adrian by the hair. "You should have stayed quiet," the figure hissed. The voice, female, sharp, familiar. Nicholas's mind raced. Helena had an accomplice, and it wasn't Marcus's bodyguard. It was someone else entirely. Someone who knew the family. Someone who hated Adrian enough to drag him like this. The hood slipped slightly as she shoved Adrian, revealing a streak of red hair. Nicholas inhaled sharply. Clarissa, Helena's personal assistant. Quiet, polite, invisible. He had once given her a scholarship to study finance. She had cried with gratitude. Now she was helping steal his entire empire. Adrian groaned, lifting his head. You won't get anything," he spat through blood. "My father—" "Your father is a dying relic," Clarissa sneered. "Marcus promised me a position in the new order. Helena promised me shares. You're just collateral damage." Nicholas felt something ancient awaken inside him. Not rage, something deeper, older. The instinct of a man who had built kingdoms and crushed threats far more powerful than these amateurs. He whispered into the voice changer, activating a command. All garage lights snapped off. The room plunged into darkness. Shouts erupted. Clarissa cursed. The bodyguard stumbled. Adrian gasped. Nicholas moved like a ghost. A silent step. A faint breath. A soft click of the tranquilizer pen. 1 dart fired. A heavy body hit the ground. The bodyguard. Clarissa screamed and fired a gun blindly, bullets sparking off metal. But Nicholas had already shifted position. He fired again, another dart. The hooded woman swayed, reached for the nearest car for balance, then dropped like a stone. The darkness settled. Only 2 breaths remained, Nicholas's and Adrian's. Nicholas rushed forward and ripped the tape from his son's mouth. "Dad!" Adrian rasped, voice trembling with exhaustion. "How did you—" But Nicholas wasn't listening. He was cutting the ropes off, his movements precise, controlled, yet trembling with a father's fury. He hauled Adrian up gently. "Can you walk?" Adrian nodded weakly. Yes, I can." They moved toward the exit. But Nicholas paused when the door creaked open. Helena stood there, soaked from rain, makeup smudged, eyes blazing with fury and disbelief. Behind her, Marcus loomed like a shadow. "So," Helena whispered, her voice trembling with an emotion Nicholas couldn't recognize. Shock, perhaps. "The old man can walk without a cane. I knew something about you felt off." Nicholas didn't answer. He stepped forward, shielding Adrian behind him. Marcus stepped inside the garage, grinned sharp and venomous. "Will Durden, I have to hand it to you. You're harder to kill than I expected." Nicholas said nothing. His silence was more threatening than any insult. Helena walked closer, heels clacking across the concrete. "All this time," she snarled, "you were pretending to be weak, pretending to be fragile, watching me, testing me. You failed," Nicholas said quietly. Helena flinched. Marcus laughed cruelly. "Oh, don't pretend you're the victim now, Nicholas. Helena came to me because you pushed her away. You buried yourself in your empire. You cared more for numbers than for her. Don't justify betrayal." Nicholas cut in. "It doesn't make you smarter. It just makes you predictable." Helena's eyes filled with cold, sharp hate. "You think this ends with you walking away?" No, we planned this too long. Marcus has everything he needs to drain your accounts tonight. Not anymore, Nicholas said, pulling out the security override device. Marcus's smile faded. I locked every vault and froze every offshore channel the moment Clarissa entered the garage, Nicholas said. Your entire operation is dead. Helena's face twisted in rage. You can't do that. I just did. Marcus lunged first. Nicholas shoved Adrian aside and pivoted. The punch grazed his shoulder. But Nicholas grabbed Marcus by the collar and slammed him against the hood of a car. Marcus swung again, but Nicholas dodged, years of suppressed strength roaring back into his muscles. You stole from me, Nicholas growled, pinning Marcus's hand to the metal. You threatened my family. Marcus spat in his face. Nicholas dislocated his wrist with a single twist. Marcus screamed. Helena shrieked and rushed forward, but Adrian, limping yet furious, blocked her path. You hurt my father, Adrian said, voice thick with betrayal. You tried to kill me. Helena shoved him. You're ungrateful. Everything I did for yourself, Adrian said coldly. You never loved us. Helena's face collapsed, not into guilt, but into pure rage. Nicholas released Marcus and stepped between Helena and his son. She looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. You ruined yourself, Nicholas said softly. You had a home, a family, a life people envy. But greed is a hunger that eats its own master. Helena trembled, eyes wild. You can't prove anything. Nicholas looked at the unconscious bodyguard. Clarissa on the floor, Marcus clutching his limp wrist. I don't need to, he said. The cameras have already recorded everything. Helena paled. From behind her, armed security guards, loyal ones, rushed into garage. They froze at the scene, eyes widening. Nicholas finally straightened, shedding the last trace of the Gateman he had pretended to be. Take them, he ordered. Marcus was dragged away, screaming threats. Clarissa was carried out unconscious. Helena didn't fight. She simply stared at Nicholas, eyes hollow and unbelieving, like a woman waking from a dream only to discover it was a nightmare she created herself. Nick, she whispered, voice cracking. Please don't do this. But Nicholas didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. She was taken away in handcuffs, her sobbing echoing through the garage. Only when the last of them were gone did the adrenaline leave Nicholas's body. He felt suddenly older, heavier. He turned to Adrian. His son stepped forward and wrapped his arms around him. For a long moment, father and son stood in the silent garage, two survivors of a storm they never expected to face. Finally, Adrian pulled back. Dad, what now? Nicholas looked toward the mansion. The home nearly stolen from him, the empire nearly destroyed, the family nearly shattered. The night air flowed in from the open doors, cold and cleansing. What now? Nicholas repeated softly. He placed a hand on Adrian's shoulder. Now, he said, we rebuild, not the empire, the trust, the future. He paused, eyes solemn and fierce. And we make sure no one ever gets this close to breaking us again. Adrian nodded. Together, they walked out of the garage. The storm had passed, but the new dawn that awaited them would be shaped by everything they had survived.